Hello everybody. Today I'll try to cover the 7th and 8th aphorism together because both of them are closely related and are trying to convey the same thing in different words. The 7th aphorism states, "Now as in a disease from which no manifest exciting or maintaining cause, that is causa occasionalis, has to be removed, we can perceive nothing but the morbid symptoms. It must be the symptoms alone by which the disease demands and points to the remedy suited to relieve it, and moreover, the totality of these, its symptoms, of this outwardly reflected picture of the internal essence of the disease, that is, of the affection of the vital force, must be the principal or the sole means whereby the disease can make known what remedy it requires. The only thing that can determine the choice of the most appropriate remedy, and thus, in a word, the totality of the symptoms must be the principal, indeed the only thing the physician has to take note of in every case of disease, and to remove by means of his art, in order that it shall be cured and transformed into health." There are two footnotes along with this 7th aphorism which we will discuss later. In the 8th aphorism, Dr. Hahnemann states that it is not conceivable, nor can it be proved by any experience in the world, that after removal of all the symptoms of the disease and of the entire collection of the perceptible phenomena, there should or could remain anything else besides health, or that the morbid alteration in the interior could remain uneradicated. Again, there is a footnote to this aphorism which we will discuss when we come to explaining this aphorism. We will start with the aphorism 7. To understand these aphorisms clearly, you will again need to refer to the medical theories prevalent at the time of Hahnemann. I have discussed these theories in detail in my last lecture on the 6th aphorism, and here I'll only summarize the key points. The system of medicine prevalent at the time of Hahnemann was still primarily based on varied hypotheses. Disease was attributed to anything from imbalance of humors to excess of blood, that is plethora. In spite of the ever-increasing advancements in the field of anatomy and physiology, nobody knew for sure what caused disease. People gave hypothesis after hypothesis which were not based on experience or observation, but were based solely on imagination to explain the real cause of disease. Many great brains of that time were trying to find the real cause of disease hidden somewhere within the human body. It was against this form of projection, hypothesis, and the effort to find the cause of the disease in the interior of man, while neglecting that in this spot, that which was clearly appreciable from outside, that is the symptoms, that Hahnemann raised his voice in these two aphorisms. What Hahnemann is saying here is that in all cases where there is no identifiable exciting or maintaining cause, it is the symptoms alone which tell us about the disease, and it is the symptoms alone which can guide us to the remedial agent. I've already discussed the exciting and fundamental causes in my lecture on aphorism 5, so I won't go into that detail here again. The core of the matter is that Hahnemann was raising his voice against the various hypotheses, trying to assert the real cause of disease while ignoring the presentation of the disease. He says that the totality of these, its symptoms, of this outwardly reflected picture of the internal essence of the disease, that is, of the affection of the vital force, must be the principal or the sole means whereby the disease can make known what remedy it requires. It clearly highlights the need to study the clinical presentation in every case as a means to find out the internal derangement that leads to the development of the disease. Hahnemann says that the totality of symptoms is the only thing that the physician has to take note of to find out what is wrong in the patient and what is it that needs to be cured. Now we come back to studying the aphorisms. They are very important to understand the aphorism 7. We will first begin with aphorism 2. In the footnote 2 of aphorism 7, in this footnote, Dr. Hahnemann says that in all times, the old school physicians, not knowing how else to give relief, have sought to combat and if possible to suppress by medicines here and there a single symptom from among a number in diseases, a one-sided procedure which, under the name of symptomatic treatment, has just excited universal contempt, because by it not only was nothing gained, but much harm was inflicted. A single one of the symptoms present is no more the disease itself than a foot is to the man himself. This procedure was so much the more reprehensible that such a single symptom was only treated by an antagonistic remedy, whereby after a slight alleviation it was subsequently only rendered all the worse. Now, in this footnote, Hahnemann ridicules the allopathic practice of treating symptoms in isolation. He says that a single symptom does not give a reliable picture of the disease. Treating a patient by taking care of the isolated symptoms is like guessing who is the man behind a toe or a hand. So if you treat the vomiting with an antiemetic, hypertension with an antihypertensive, constipation with a laxative, you are not taking care of the complete disease picture and the cause of the disease. Suppressing such symptoms in isolation does not check the disease, and it can often harm the patient. Hahnemann says that allopathic medicines will usually make the symptoms worse after an initial amelioration. Like the constipation will become worse if the laxative is stopped. The blood pressure will shoot further as the antihypertensive is withdrawn. This is true in nearly all cases except in some acute cases like acute gastritis, where the vital force recovers on its own, and in such cases there will be no aggravation after the allopathic medicine is discontinued. The part of the seventh aphorism that I enjoy most is the first footnote. I'll read the first footnote before I explain it to you. The first footnote, or the aphorism 7, says, "It is not necessary to say that every intelligent physician would first remove this where it exists. The indisposition thereupon generally ceases spontaneously. He will remove from the room strong-smelling flowers, which have a tendency to cause syncope and hysterical sufferings, extract from the cornea the foreign body that excites inflammation of the eye, loosen the overtight bandage on a wounded limb that threatens to cause mortification, and apply a more suitable one, lay bare and put ligature on the wounded artery that produces fainting, endeavor to promote the expulsion by vomiting of belladonna berries, etc., that may have been swallowed, extract foreign substances that may have got into the orifices of the body, crush the vesical calculus, open the imperforate anus of the newborn infant, etc." Now this is the really exciting part of this aphorism. Here you are able to see the depth of Hahnemann's thought and can marvel at his foresight. Today there are very few homeopaths in this world who can extract a foreign body from nose, ear or eye, or can apply sutures or give a gastric lavage or open an imperforate anus. Hahnemann knew it very well that not all conditions are amenable to medicine. There are cases where you do not need any medicine. Just a slight change in diet and regime will set the patient right. We have so many lifestyle related illnesses today, and we are still trying to find a chemical cure for all of them. And then there are cases which will need some surgical procedure to alleviate the suffering of the patient. It is so sad to see that majority of homeopaths, even in India, where they are trained to work at par with the conventional doctors, are not trained to perform the most basic emergency procedures like suturing, splinting, setting a displaced shoulder, extracting a foreign body from an orifice, conducting a normal delivery or doing a laryngectomy. We don't need to work as surgeons, but these are such basic emergency procedures that irrespective of the pathy that one is practicing, every physician should have these skills. If Hahnemann were alive today, He would have surely insisted on this, and I am ready to shout myself hoarse over this issue till our colleges and governments are willing to give me an ear. Now let's move forward. While Hahnemann was insisting on the importance of symptoms, he did not leave any scope for misunderstanding regarding the fundamental cause of disease, that is, our susceptibility. He says, it must regard being paid to the possibility of a miasm and attention paid to the accessory circumstances, be the symptoms alone. In brackets he has written that while you take care of the totality of symptoms, do not ignore the possibility of an underlying miasm and the accessory circumstances that might be contributing to the disease. What he meant to say here is that in a case of arthritis, if you treat the patient based on the symptoms of joint pains, like worse by motion and better by rest, or worse by rest, better by motion, we will not be able to cure the underlying disease. In chronic diseases, you have to address the underlying susceptibility. You have to see beyond. You have to see beyond, not ignore. So you have to see beyond the totality of symptoms and study the past medical history, family history, and the physical and mental constitution to understand the totality of the patient. Mark it, I am saying totality of the patient, not the totality of the symptoms. So you have to study the medical history of the patient, family history, and the physical and mental constitution to understand the totality of the patient, the predispositions that he was born with, the tendencies that he has acquired, and the state of his susceptibility. Only then you will be able to find the true simillimum. In addition, you have to take note of the accessory conditions like his diet, lifestyle, culture, and environment. These factors can contribute to the disease condition, and it will be difficult to cure a case even with the right remedy till we set right any accessory circumstances that might be causing or contributing to the derangement of the vital force and maintaining the sickness. Once you understand the depth of Hahnemann's words, you cannot but marvel at his sheer genius. He was a masterpiece in the history of medicine, way ahead of his times. Now let us move further to understanding the eighth aphorism. The eighth aphorism seems to be directed towards Hufelin's criticism of homeopathy. Hufelin and some other contemporaries of Hahnemann were of the opinion that while homeopathy can treat the symptoms, it cannot cure the disease. Hahnemann was appalled by this statement. He found it foolish. He said that the disease manifests itself in the form of signs and symptoms. So if the signs and symptoms have disappeared, it is natural to believe that the disease which was causing those symptoms is not present in the body anymore. In the footnote, Hahnemann explains that this notion of disease being separate from the symptoms arises due to the materialistic notion of the old school. They are unable to appreciate the dynamic nature of the disease, the dynamic derangement of the vital force, and continue to feel that there is some material cause of disease lurking in the hidden interior of the human organism that persists even after there is no trace of any sickness left. He found Hufelin's statement an insult to the common sense. There is nothing much to explain here, as even I feel the same way. So this is all that we have to understand in aphorism 7 and 8. There is a lot more, but there is a limit to what we can teach via internet. But I hope you have understood and enjoyed this discourse, and we'll meet again next month with even a more exciting probe into our vital force. Thank you.